Today, by viewer request, we're taking a look at the 2013 Toyota Venza. This is Toyota's 5-seat crossover vehicle, while the Highlander is their 7-seat crossover vehicle. That means that the Venza competes with the likes of the Ford Edge, the GMC Terrain, the Chevy Equinox, the Mazda CX-7, and pretty much all those other mid-size crossover vehicles. Now, it does look very similar to the Lexus RX, although it really shares essentially nothing with that RX other than the platform. The RX, the Highlander, and this Venza are all Toyota Camry-based vehicles, and they share, a lot of common drivetrain parts, but essentially nothing on the inside. Under the hood, you have a choice of two different engine options. We have the 181 horsepower, 2.7-liter four-cylinder engine, or this optional engine here, which is their 3.5-liter, 268 horsepower V6. Now, both engines are mated to the same Toyota and Aisin 6-speed automatic transmission, and of course, you get the option of all-wheel drive. As I said, the Venza is related to the Toyota Camry, so if you don't opt for all-wheel drive, the power is sent to these front wheels only. Now, the Venza is not a new vehicle. It's been around for a number of years now, and compared to the competition, it's getting a little bit old, and as such, the all-wheel drive system isn't quite as advanced as it is in some of the competition. This is definitely still a slip and grip style system, so the front wheels have to slip in order for the power to be sent to the rear wheels in a lot of driving situations. Not all of them, mind you. But if you're at a stoplight and you floor the car, you still get one wheel peel in the Venza, and you still get a decent amount of torque steer from a stop. The Venza scores 8 out of 10 points in our exclusive Trunk Comfort Index, because despite this sloping rear profile, the cargo area is very large, and that's because the Venza, much like the Ford Edge, is a fairly large mid-sized crossover. This is the largest roller bag you can carry on a domestic flight, and as you can see, I have two of them stacked up here. I also have a checked roller garment bag back here with me in the trunk, and I'm fairly comfortable back here. The fit and finish back here in the cargo area is fairly nice, and the plastics in the back are no worse than they are in the rest of the car. Helping you squeeze more cargo into the back of the Venza, these rear seats do recline, and they also move to a fairly upright position, allowing you to, somewhat square off this rear cargo area. Again, keeping in mind the sloping rear profile of the Venza. Front seat comfort in the Venza is very good. Now, of course, we're in the limited trim Venza, which means that we get leather seats. Of course, we get a power driver seat and a power front passenger seat. Now, in all versions of the Venza, the seats are fairly wide and fairly, flat, and they're not bolstered as heavily as some of the American entries in this segment, so keep that in mind depending on your seat preference. We do get a tilt telescoping steering wheel, although the range of motion in this tilt telescoping steering column isn't as large as it is in some of the American competition. In terms of interior parts quality as well as fit and finish, you can tell that the Venza is getting older compared to some of the other entries in this segment, most notably the entries from GM and Ford, honestly. And not all these panels meet quite right in our tester here. The speaker grill over here, some of these air vents in the car, they just don't have that right feel that you'd expect, honestly, from a Toyota product. And definitely the new GM products and the new Ford Edge are much more competitive, honestly, than this Venza. The dashboard is fairly soft, although it's rubbery. It's not that same, faux leather padded dashboard that's becoming more common in the marketplace. Toyota's gone for a very asymmetrical look here on the dashboard that I'm honestly not a huge fan of either. To try and update the Venza a little bit, Toyota's grabbed the steering wheel and the button modules from the new Toyota Camry. As you can see, it's not symmetrical either. Over here on the left, we get some audio control buttons that's track up and down, and the rest of these buttons control the infotainment system, which we'll take a look at in a little bit. And of course, over here on the left, we have our Bluetooth phone hang up and pick up buttons, as well as our voice control button. As with a lot of vehicles in this segment, things do get a bit cheaper in the rear. We have hard plastic on these doors instead of the semi-soft touch materials on the doors in front of me, although there is still a padded armrest here. Legroom is excellent in the back of the Venza, and that's part of the reason you'd buy this over a Toyota Camry, for instance. I'm 6 feet tall, and I still have about 4 inches of legroom left, and this front seat's adjusted for me. Even though we have the optional sunroof in this particular car, I still have about 2 inches of headroom left over here on the left. If I move to the middle seat, you can see I still have adequate headroom, and because the Venza is a fairly wide vehicle, you could fit 3 adults back here fairly easily, although these seats are fairly low to the ground, and so they may not be comfortable for long car trips, especially if you need more thigh support. Now, the rear seats do recline, as you can see here, And with the same lever for reclining, they do fold almost completely flat with the cargo area. Now this front seat's adjusted for a 6'4" passenger, so it's about as far back as it can go. So you can see you can still recline these rear seats with that front seat in the furthest rearward position. Our particular car does have the rear seat entertainment system optional with Toyota, although it looks a little bit of like an aftermarket add-on if I'm honest. For 2013, Toyota has brought their Entune system to the Toyota Venza. Now what that really means is they've just brought sync-like voice recognition for smartphones, iDevices, other USB devices, etc. to their existing infotainment lineup in the Venza, as well as bringing their newer display audio systems to this vehicle. Now honestly, their 6.1-inch display audio system is my personal favorite going on right now in the Toyota lineup, and there's another TTAC video on that particular system specifically. Essentially, it has a smaller screen, so this is a 7-inch, this is the top of the line hard drive 7-inch navigation system, slightly larger screen, and it also uses a hard drive again for that mapping rather than flash memory. Now the lower end system, the display audio with navigation is what they call it, drives most of its data services via your smartphone. Well, this particular system, the 7-inch system, uses XM radio for its map data for weather and as well as traffic, etc. on the screen. So it's a little bit of a different model there in these vehicles. This interface should be fairly familiar to you if you've used a variety of recent Toyota and Lexus products. This interface is essentially the same that's used in the current generation Lexus products as well. As you can see, we have soft access buttons to our CD, iPod, Bluetooth audio, auxiliary, AM, FM satellite, as well as hard buttons here so we can switch between radio and media here. The destination button allows us to enter a destination. You can, of course, enter it manually if the vehicle is stopped. You can also use the voice recognition system for that. A direct access button for the mapping system over here. And again, we do have XM satellite traffic displayed on this particular map. We have a very standard Bluetooth phone interface over here, and the Info and Apps button is your fairly standard XM information from fuel prices to XM weather, stock, sports, etc. And this Apps button allows you to integrate things like Pandora and other apps with your smartphone via this particular system, and that's the Entune portion that's new. The other part of Entune is, of course, aside from being able to browse your USB or iDevice fairly easily in this on-screen interface, you also have access to voice commands via that steering wheel button. So let's press it. Play music.
Play music.
Play artist Toby Keith.
Play artist Toby Keith.
Yes.
Yes.
Now, as you can see on the screen, we're playing artist Toby Keith. Now, of course, there are a few more steps in that dialogue interface than there are with Chevy MyLink or, of course, with Ford Sync product. But the system is very competitive with both of those other entries. And compared, of course, to My Ford Touch and those latest Sync products, this system hasn't crashed on us at all this week, and it's never gone strange with our iDevice. It's never frozen. It's never hung up, and everything is fairly instant. So in that respect, this product is definitely superior to My Ford Touch. I always get that name wrong here. The graphics on this system, however, are not quite as interesting as My Ford Touch, and the screen is not quite as large, although, again, the system didn't crash on us at all, and that's really got to account for an awful lot. We're out here driving around Suburbia because that is, of course, the natural habitat for the Toyota Venza, just as it's the natural habitat for any other crossover utility vehicle, because unlike a traditional sport utility vehicle, these aren't really designed for fording water or for rock climbing or any of that sort of thing. Crossover utility vehicles are really more about practicality, having that hatchback in the rear so you can jam more cargo and more stuff in the vehicle, as well as having a taller ride height so that you feel like you have better visibility on the road. Now, performance in the Venza is very good. We clocked 0 to 60 in just under 6.5 seconds in this particular vehicle, and that's thanks to being a fairly light crossover utility vehicle as far as these things go. You know, the latest Ford Edge is getting a little bit heavy, and the GMC Terrain and the Chevy Equinox are both fairly heavy crossover vehicles, and this Venza's, several hundred pounds lighter than those. Well, you think that might translate into better performance and better handling out on the road. That really isn't the case. The Ford Edge, despite being considerably heavier, does have several more powerful engine options, and of course that base 2-liter EcoBoost engine in the Ford Edge performs fairly similarly to this 3.5-liter V6 in the Venza, even though it's heavier. The Venza stock all-terrain tires tend to follow grooves in the pavement fairly easily, which is something that bothered me during our week with this vehicle. The slip and grip all-wheel drive system in the Venza really makes this feel more like a front-wheel drive vehicle under most circumstances. We still have a decent amount of torque steer when you accelerate in this vehicle, and if you're taking off from a stop sign or a stoplight, you can get those front wheels to light up just a little bit before the system engages. That's really not too much of a problem for the Venza because, like every other all-wheel drive crossover utility vehicle, this vehicle's purpose in being is really just so that when you go to the snow, you don't have to put chains on because you've got all-wheel drive and snow tires on. Automotive journalists are almost always accused of having some sort of import bias, that for some reason we just hate American cars. Well, let this be an example. Although I don't find the Venza terrible by any stretch of the imagination, I do rank this Venza below the Chevy Equinox, the GMC Terrain, and the Ford Edge. And I might even place them in the order of GMC Terrain, Ford Edge, and then Chevy Equinox, partially because I don't find the Equinox terribly attractive looking. But the GMC Terrain I find fairly attractive looking. The new Chevy MyLink system is an absolutely excellent infotainment system. Honestly, it feels much better out on the road than this vehicle, gets slightly better gas mileage, and has better performance than this vehicle as well. On that bombshell, it's now time for you to click on over to thetruthaboutcars.com to check out our news, reviews, and more. And of course, do all those social things like us on Facebook, subscribe to our YouTube feed, and add thetruthaboutcars.com to your favorites lists.